The man across the table slid a single piece of paper toward me. "Marry me," he said, "and your family's debt disappears tonight. Every penny gone." I stared at the paper. I stared at him. I was 23 years old, and I had never seen this man before in my life. His name was Adrian Sinclair. I knew that much. Everyone in the city knew the name Sinclair. The Sinclair family owned banks, buildings, whole companies. They were the kind of rich that most people cannot even imagine. And now the most powerful of them all was sitting across a small table from me in a quiet corner of an expensive restaurant, asking me to marry him. I did not love him. I did not know him. He was a cold, serious stranger in a perfect gray suit with dark eyes that gave nothing away. But my family was drowning, and this stranger was holding out a rope. Let me go back. Let me tell you how a girl like me ended up at that table. My name is Mia Bennett. I grew up in a small house on the edge of the city with my mother, my father, and my little sister, Emily. We were not rich, but we were happy. My father, Robert Bennett, ran a small furniture business. He built things with his hands, beautiful tables and chairs and cabinets, and he was proud of his work. My mother kept the books and made our house a home. And Emily, my sister, 7 years younger than me, was the brightest, funniest person I had ever known. We did not have much money, but we had enough, and we had each other. For a long time, that was all we needed. Then everything fell apart. It started with my father's cough. A small cough at first. We did not think much of it, but it grew worse and worse until one day he collapsed in his workshop and we rushed him to the hospital, and the doctors gave us news that changed our lives forever. My father was very ill. His heart was weak, weaker than anyone had known. He needed an operation, a serious, expensive operation. And after the operation, he could not work, not for a long time, perhaps never again. We had no money for a doctor like that, so my father did what desperate people do. He borrowed. He borrowed to pay for the operation. He borrowed to keep the business alive while he was sick. He borrowed from banks, and then, when the banks said no, he borrowed from other places, darker places, places that lend money to desperate people and then destroy them. By the time I understood how bad it was, the debt was enormous, more money than my family could earn in 20 years. And the people my father owed were not patient people. They wanted their money, all of it, and soon. They began to call the house. Then they began to come to the house. Large men in dark coats, standing in our small front garden, frightening my mother, frightening Emily. They said if we did not pay, they would take the house. They would take the business. They would take everything. And they made it very clear that they would not stop there. I will never forget the worst night. It was raining hard, and there was a knock at the door. Not a normal knock, a slow, heavy knock, the kind that makes your stomach drop. My mother opened it, and 3 men stood there in the rain, water dripping from their dark coats. "Where's Robert?" the largest one said. His voice was quiet, which was worse than shouting. "He's ill," my mother said. Her hands were shaking. "He's in bed. He can't come to the door." "Ill," the man repeated, as if it were a funny word. "That's a shame. But being ill doesn't make a debt disappear, does it? The debt doesn't care if he's ill." He stepped forward into our little hallway, uninvited, and he looked around slowly at our small, tidy home. Nice house, small but nice. It would be a shame if something happened to it. A fire, maybe. Houses like this, old wood, They burn very fast. He smiled. You have 2 weeks. Then we start taking things. The house, the business, whatever we can get. His eyes moved to me, then down the hall to where Emily stood frozen in her doorway. Whatever we can get. And then they left, back into the rain, and my mother closed the door and slid down against it to the floor and cried in a way I had never seen an adult cry. I was terrified. My mother was terrified. My father, lying in his bed, too weak to stand, wept because he could not protect us. And Emily, my brave little sister, stopped laughing. For the first time in her life, she stopped laughing. That was what broke my heart the most. Not the debt, not the men at the door. My little sister, 16 years old, sitting in the dark, afraid, silent. I would have done anything to make her laugh again. Anything at all. I was working 2 jobs by then. I cleaned offices in the early mornings, and I worked in a shop in the afternoons. But 2 jobs could not touch a debt like ours. It was like trying to empty the ocean with a spoon. And then, one gray afternoon, a car came to the shop where I worked. A long, black, expensive car. A driver got out, walked into the shop, and asked for me by name. Miss Bennett, he said, Mr. Sinclair would like to speak with you. I did not know any Mr. Sinclair. I thought there had been a mistake, but the driver was polite and firm, and something in me, something desperate and curious, made me go. He drove me across the city to a restaurant more expensive than anywhere I had ever been. And there, at a small table in a quiet corner, sat Adrian Sinclair. He stood when I approached. He was tall and serious and very handsome in a cold sort of way, like a statue carved from stone. He shook my hand. His grip was firm. His eyes studied my face the way you might study a document, looking for something. Miss Bennett, he said, thank you for coming. Please, sit. I sat. My heart was pounding. I did not understand any of this. I'll be direct, he said. I know about your family. I know about your father's illness. I know about the debt. I know exactly who your father borrowed from. And I know exactly how much you owe. And I know that you have no way to pay it. He paused. I know that you are frightened. And I know that you would do almost anything to protect your family. I did not know what to say. This powerful stranger knew everything about the worst moments of my life. How? I finally managed. How do you know all this? I make it my business to know things, he said. That is not important. What is important is that I have a proposal for you, a business arrangement, one that solves your problem completely. And then he slid that single piece of paper across the table, and he said the words that would change my life. Marry me, and your family's debt disappears tonight. I laughed. I could not help it. It came out sharp and disbelieving. Is this a joke? I said. You don't know me. I don't know you. People don't just marry strangers. I am completely serious, he said. His face did not change. And it is not a real marriage. Let me explain, and then you can decide. So I listened, because when your family is drowning, you listen to anyone holding a rope, even a cold stranger with dark eyes. He explained it simply. Adrian Sinclair needed a wife, not for love, for business. His grandfather, the old head of the Sinclair Empire, had recently died, and his grandfather's will contained a strange and old-fashioned condition. Adrian would only inherit control of the family company, the whole vast empire, if he was married by his 33rd birthday. If he was not married by then, control would pass to someone else. His cousin, a man named Victor Sinclair. My cousin Victor, Adrian said, and for the first time, something flickered in his cold eyes, something hard. Is a greedy and dangerous man. If he takes control of the company, thousands of people will lose their jobs. He will sell everything, take the money, and leave 100 years of my family's work in ruins. I cannot allow that to happen. My grandfather, foolish as his condition was, wanted me to have a family, to be settled, before he trusted me with everything. So, I need a wife by my birthday, which is in 6 weeks. So marry someone you love, I said. Surely a man like you has women lining up. I do not love anyone, he said flatly, and I do not intend to. Love is a weakness I cannot afford, and a lie I will not tell. I need a wife on paper, a woman who will play the part in public, live in my house, appear at my side when required, and ask no questions. In return, that woman's every need will be taken care of. And in your case, Miss Bennet, your family's debt, all of it, will be paid tonight. Your father will have the best doctors in the country. Your sister will go to the best schools. Your family will never want for anything again. I could barely breathe. For how long? I whispered. 1 year, he said. We stay married for 1 year. That satisfies the will and settles the company. After 1 year, we divorce quietly, and you walk away with a generous settlement, and your family safe forever. You would never have to see me again. It is, in every way, a business contract, nothing more. And what would be expected of me? I asked. My voice was steadier than I felt. In this 1 year, what exactly does a fake wife have to do? You would live in my house, he said. You would take my name. You would appear at my side at certain events, dinners, parties, when the family or the business requires it. And you would play the part of a woman in love. In private, you would have your own room, your own life, your own money. I would not touch you. I would not trouble you. I ask only 2 things: that you never speak of the arrangement to anyone, not even your family, and that you never, under any circumstances, fall in love with me. He said this last part as if it were the easiest thing in the world. That would complicate everything, and it would end badly for you. I am not a man who can love anyone back. Do not make that mistake. It is the one rule that matters. I almost laughed. Fall in love with him? With this cold statue of a man? It seemed the least likely thing in the world. That won't be a problem, I said. Good, he said. Then we understand each other. 1 year, 1 year of pretending to be the wife of a stranger. And in return, my father would live. My sister would laugh again. The men in dark coats would disappear from our garden forever. I thought about Emily, sitting silent in the dark. I thought about my father weeping because he could not protect us. I thought about my mother's face, gray with fear. Why me? I asked. It was the only question that still made no sense. You could choose anyone, a model, an actress, someone from your own world who understands these things. Why did you come looking for a poor girl with a drowning family? Why me? And here, for just a moment, Adrian Sinclair paused. It was a small thing, a tiny hesitation. His eyes moved, just slightly, away from mine, and then back. Because a desperate person keeps a promise, he said. A woman with everything to lose will not betray the arrangement. You need this to work more than anyone else possibly could. That makes you reliable. That is all. I believed him. Why would I not? It made sense. I was desperate, and desperate people are reliable. I did not know then that he was lying. I did not know that Adrian Sinclair had chosen me for a reason that had nothing to do with the debt or the will or my reliability. I did not know that the real reason was a secret buried deep in the past, a secret that connected his family to mine in ways I could not have imagined. But that is a story for later. That night, I only knew what he told me, and what he told me sounded like a miracle. I need your answer soon, he said, standing, buttoning his jacket. The birthday is in 6 weeks, and a wedding takes planning. Take the contract, read it, have someone you trust look at it, and call me tomorrow. He placed a business card on the table. But Miss Bennet, understand that this offer will not come again. If you say no, I will find someone else, and your family's debt will remain exactly where it is. He left, and I sat alone at that expensive table, holding a piece of paper that promised to save everyone I loved. In exchange for 1 year of my life, I did not need to think for very long. I went home that night and I told my mother everything. She cried. She said she could not let me sell myself, could not let me marry a stranger, could not let me sacrifice my life for the family's mistakes. I held her hands and I told her the truth. Mom, I said, it's 1 year, 1 year of my life, and in return, Dad lives. Emily gets her future back. Those men leave us alone forever. There is no price too high for that. There is nothing I would not give. I wiped her tears. You would do it for me. You know you would. Let me do it for all of you. My father, when we told him, was silent for a long time. He was a proud man, and it broke something in him that his daughter would have to marry a stranger to fix his mistakes. He held my hand in his weak one, and he looked at me with tears in his eyes. I built furniture, he said softly. I built strong, honest things with my own hands. And now my daughter has to marry a rich stranger because I could not keep my own family safe. What kind of father does that make me? The kind who got sick, I said. That's all. You didn't choose this, Dad. None of us did. But I'm choosing this, me, because I love you and because I can. The next morning, I called the number on the card. Mr. Sinclair, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I've read the contract. I have some conditions of my own, and if you agree to them, I'll marry you. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I thought I heard, just faintly, the smallest note of surprise. Conditions, he said. Go on. My father gets the best doctors, starting immediately, not after the wedding. My family stays in their own home, not somewhere you choose. And my sister's education is paid for through university, whatever she wants to study, no matter what happens between you and me, even if the marriage ends early. Even if I fail you somehow, Emily's future is protected no matter what. Put it in writing. Another pause. Agreed, Adrian said. All of it. I'll have the contract updated today. And Miss Bennet? Yes, that was well done. Most people in your position forget to protect themselves. You didn't. Something almost like respect had entered his cold voice. Perhaps I chose better than I knew. I did not understand that last sentence then. I would understand it much, much later. The doctors came for my father that same afternoon. Real doctors from the finest hospital in the country, in clean white coats, with kind voices and confident hands. Within a week, my father had his operation. It went well. The surgeon told us he would recover slowly but fully, that he would see Emily grow up, that he would build furniture again one day. My mother collapsed into my arms, sobbing with relief, and for the first time in months, I let myself cry too. And that night, I heard a sound I had almost forgotten. Down the hall, in her room, My little sister Emily was laughing at something on her phone. Laughing. Bright and free and 16 again. I stood in the hallway and I listened to my sister laugh, and I knew with total certainty that I had made the right choice. Whatever this year cost me, it was worth it. It was already worth it. The wedding was 3 weeks later. It was not the wedding I had imagined as a girl. There was no love in it. There was no joy, not the real kind. But it was, I have to admit, beautiful. The Sinclairs did nothing by halves. I was dressed in a gown that cost more than my father's house. My hair was done by people who did the hair of famous women. I looked, when I saw myself in the mirror, like someone else entirely, like a woman from Adrian's world, not mine. The ceremony was small and private, held in the garden of the Sinclair estate. There were perhaps 40 guests, all of them Adrian's people, none of them mine, except my mother and Emily. My father was still too weak to attend, and it broke my heart, but he had made me promise to send him 100 photographs. I walked down the path alone because there was no one from my world to give me away, and Adrian watched me come with his cold, unreadable eyes. He looked magnificent in his black suit, tall and serious and handsome, and as I reached him and took his hand, I searched his face for something, anything, some flicker of feeling, but there was nothing, just the calm, closed face of a man completing a business transaction. We said the words, we exchanged the rings. When the moment came, he kissed me, briefly and coolly, a kiss with no more warmth in it than a handshake. And just like that, I was Mrs. Adrian Sinclair, married to a stranger, my family saved. I remember thinking, as everyone applauded politely, that I felt nothing at all, not happy, not sad, just numb and very far from home. But there was one small moment I have never forgotten. As we turned to face the guests, my hand still in his, I stumbled slightly on the hem of my enormous dress. It was nothing. I barely moved. But Adrian's hand tightened around mine at once, steadying me, holding me up, before I even knew I needed it. It was such a small thing, a reflex, but for 1 second, his cold hand held mine, like it mattered whether I fell. And then the second passed, and his face was a stone wall again, and I told myself I had imagined it. Emily hugged me after the ceremony in her pretty new dress, and she whispered in my ear, "He's very handsome, Mia. Do you love him?" And I smiled, and I lied to my little sister for the first time in my life, and I said, "Of course I do," because she could never know the truth. No one could. That was the rule. My mother held me longer. She did not ask if I loved him. She just held me, and I felt her tremble, and I knew she was thinking the same thing I was, that her daughter had just given up a year of her life, maybe more, for the rest of them. She did not say, "Thank you." Some things are too big for thank you. She just held me, and then she let me go into my new life, in the house of the stranger I had married. After the wedding, I moved into the Sinclair mansion. Mansion is not even the right word. It was a palace, a vast gray stone house, 300 years old, sitting in its own private park behind tall iron gates. It had more rooms than I could count. It had a library the size of a church. It had staff, dozens of them, who moved silently through the halls and called me Mrs. Sinclair, in voices that did not quite hide what they thought of the poor girl their master had married. On my very first night in that house, a maid unpacked my few small bags, my cheap clothes looking strange and out of place in the enormous wooden wardrobes. She was young, about my age, with kind eyes, and when the others were not looking, she leaned close to me and spoke very quietly. "Be careful in this house, Mrs. Sinclair," she whispered. "Not everyone here is your friend, and there are things about this family, things about Mr. Sinclair, that no one talks about. Old things, sad things." She glanced at the door, afraid. "Just watch and listen and trust slowly. That's all I'll say." And then she finished her work and hurried out, leaving me alone with her warning ringing in my ears. I did not sleep at all that first night. I lay in the huge, soft, unfamiliar bed, in the huge, dark, unfamiliar room, and I listened to the strange sounds of the old house settling around me, and I thought about how far I had come from my small bedroom in our small house. A week ago, I had been a girl with 2 jobs and a drowning family. Now I was Mrs. Adrian Sinclair, mistress of a palace, wife of one of the most powerful men in the country. And I had never felt so lost in all my life. My room was enormous and beautiful and lonely because, as agreed, Adrian and I did not share a room. He slept in his own wing of the house, far from mine. We were married in the eyes of the world, but in private, we were strangers who happened to live under the same enormous roof. The first days were strange and cold. Adrian was polite, but distant. We ate breakfast together each morning because the staff would notice if we did not, and we made careful, empty conversation about nothing at all. Then he would go to work, running his empire, and I would be left alone in that vast, silent house, with nothing to do and no one to talk to. A poor girl playing the part of a rich man's wife. To fill the endless hours, I began to explore the house. It was so big that I got lost more than once. There were rooms full of furniture, covered in white sheets, like a house full of ghosts. There were paintings on every wall, portraits of Sinclairs going back hundreds of years, all with the same serious dark eyes as Adrian. There were staircases that led to nowhere, and locked doors that no one would explain. One of those locked doors was at the end of the east wing, on the top floor. It was an old wooden door, and unlike the others, it had a heavy new lock on it, a lock that did not match the age of the house. I tried the handle once. It did not move, and when Mrs. Price, the housekeeper, saw me standing near it, she crossed the hall very quickly and stood between me and the door. "That room is private," she said sharply. "Mr. Sinclair's orders, and no one goes in. Not the staff, not you, especially not you." "What's in there?" I asked. "That is not your concern, Mrs. Sinclair," she said, and her voice made it very clear that the conversation was over. But as I walked away, I felt her eyes on my back, and I could not shake the feeling that whatever was behind that locked door, it was something they did not want the poor girl from nowhere to ever see. I did not know it then, but that locked room held a piece of the truth I was searching for. Not everyone in the house was kind to me. The head housekeeper, a sharp, cold woman named Mrs. Price, watched me constantly, as if she expected me to steal the silver. And once, in a hallway, I met a man who made my blood run cold. He was handsome, in a slippery sort of way, with a smile that never reached his eyes. He looked me up and down slowly, and then he smiled, that empty smile. "So," he said, "you're the little wife, the one who appeared out of nowhere, just in time." He stepped closer. "I'm Victor, Adrian's cousin. I'm sure he's mentioned me. Victor, the cousin, the dangerous man who would take everything if Adrian were not married." I understood at once that this man was my enemy, that my very existence had stolen his inheritance, and that he would not forgive it. He mentioned you, I said carefully. I'm sure he did. Victor's smile widened. Tell me, little wife, where exactly did my cousin find you? Because it's very interesting. A man like Adrian, who could marry any woman in the world, suddenly marries a poor nobody with a sick father and a mountain of debt, just weeks before his birthday, just in time to keep the company from me. He tilted his head. It almost looks arranged, doesn't it? It almost looks fake. My heart was pounding, but I kept my face still. I love my husband, I said. There's nothing more to it than that. Of course you do, Victor said softly. Of course. Well, I'll be watching your beautiful love story very closely, Mrs. Sinclair. Very closely indeed. Because if I ever find proof that this marriage is a fraud, a lie told to cheat me out of what is mine, then the whole thing falls apart. The company comes to me, and your family's little miracle disappears. He leaned in, and his voice dropped to a whisper. So do be careful. You have so very much to lose. And he walked away, leaving me shaking in that cold marble hallway. I understood then that this year would not be simple, that there were dangers here I had not imagined. Victor was watching. One mistake, one crack in the performance, and everything I had sacrificed for would be destroyed. I did not sleep much that night. My first real test came a week later. There is a great dinner at the Sinclair house, a formal evening with 100 important guests, business partners, lawyers, powerful people from Adrian's world. It was the first time I would have to play the loving wife in public, in front of people who were watching closely, in front of Victor and his cold, hunting eyes. I was terrified. I did not know which fork to use. I did not know how to talk to these people about their yachts and their companies and their holidays in places I had only seen in photographs. I was a poor girl in a borrowed world, and I was certain everyone could see it. Before we went down, Adrian came to my room. He looked at me in my expensive gown, and for a moment, he said nothing. You're nervous, he said. I don't belong here, I said. They'll see it in a second. Victor will see it. I'm going to ruin everything. And then Adrian Sinclair did something he had never done before. He crossed the room, and he took both of my hands in his, and he looked directly into my eyes. Listen to me, he said. You do belong here, more than any of them. Those people down there inherited everything they have. You have earned everything you are. You sold a year of your life to save the people you love. There is not a person at that table with half your courage. His voice was low and certain. So you will walk down those stairs with your head high, and when you feel afraid, you look at me, only me. I will be right beside you the whole time. I won't let you fall. Do you understand? I understood, and something warm and dangerous bloomed in my chest, exactly the thing I had promised never to feel. We went down together, and when the frightening people asked me their frightening questions, I looked at Adrian, and he was there, steady, his hand at my back, and somehow I got through it, more than got through it. I was charming, I was warm, I made an old banker laugh, and across the table I saw Victor watching, and I saw that he had not found the crack he was looking for. Not that night. Later, when the guests had gone, Adrian and I stood alone in the great hall, and he looked at me with something almost like wonder. You were magnificent, he said quietly. I mean that. You helped me, I said. No, he said. I told you the truth, that's all. You did the rest yourself. And we stood there, closer than we had ever stood, in the empty hall, and for one long moment I truly thought, that he might kiss me, really kiss me, not the cold handshake kiss of our wedding. And I knew, in that moment, that I wanted him to. But he stepped back, the wall came up, he wished me good night, and he walked away to his own wing of the house. And I climbed the stairs to my lonely room, pressing my hand to my chest, where my traitor heart was beating far too fast. And I thought, this is the one thing he told you not to do. Do not fall in love with him. And I was already falling. I did not sleep much that night either. But strange things happen when two people live in the same house. Slowly, very slowly, over the following weeks, something began to change between Adrian and me. It was small at first. One evening, I could not sleep, and I wandered down to the great library. I thought I was alone, but Adrian was there, sitting in an armchair by the fire, reading. He looked up, surprised, and for a moment, in the firelight, without his cold business face on, he looked different, younger, tired, almost human. I couldn't sleep, I said. I'll go. Stay, he said. It surprised us both, I think. If you want, there are enough books for two. So I stayed. I found a book, and I sat in the chair across from him, and we read in silence by the fire. It was the first peaceful moment I had felt in that house, and when I finally went to bed, I realized that Adrian Sinclair had for 1 hour not felt like a stranger at all. One afternoon, that first week, I was allowed to visit my family. Adrian's driver took me home, and I walked into our small house, and my father was sitting up in a chair by the window, color back in his face, a blanket over his knees. He was weak still, but he was alive and healing, and when he saw me, he held out his arms. There she is, he said. There's my Mia. I hugged him, carefully, and I felt his heartbeat, steady and strong under my ear. The heartbeat the finest doctors in the country had saved. And Emily came running down the stairs and threw herself at me, talking a mile a minute about her new school and her new friends and a science prize she was going to win. Laughing. My sister, laughing again. My mother made tea in our own small kitchen, in our own house that no longer had men in dark coats standing in the garden. And for an hour, I was just Mia again, not Mrs. Sinclair, just a daughter and a sister, home for tea. But when it was time to leave, my mother walked me to the car, and she held my face in her hands and looked at me closely. You're not happy, she said quietly. I can see it. You've saved us all, my brave girl, and you're paying for it with your own happiness, living in that cold house with that cold man. Her eyes filled with tears. Is he kind to you, at least? Tell me he's kind to you. I thought about the library and the firelight and the way Adrian's face changed when he forgot to be cold. He's not unkind, I said carefully. He's just lonely, I think. Lonelier than anyone I've ever met. It's all right, Mum. It's only a year. And look what it bought. Look at Dad. Look at Emily. It's the best trade I ever made. But as the car drove me back to that great gray house, back to my beautiful lonely room, I felt the truth of what my mother had seen. I had saved everyone I loved, and I had never been so alone. After that, the library became our secret. Most nights, without ever arranging it, we both ended up there. Sometimes we read in silence. Sometimes we talked carefully about small things, books, music, the garden. Never anything real, never anything that mattered. But slowly, I began to see Past the cold stone face he showed the world, I learned that he had lost his parents when he was young in an accident and had been raised by the strict grandfather whose will now ruled his life. I learned that he had been lonely for a very long time. I learned that behind the cold, powerful businessman, there was a man who had built walls so high around his heart that I did not think anyone had been inside them for years. There was one night I remember more than any other. It was raining outside, and the fire was low, and Adrian had drunk one glass of wine, just one, but it was enough to loosen something in him. He was staring into the fire, and he did not seem cold at all, just tired and sad. "Do you ever wonder," he said quietly, not really looking at me, "how different your life would be if one thing had happened differently? One single thing, years ago, before you were even old enough to understand it, and everything after that, your whole life, all of it, shaped by that one thing you never chose." "All the time," I said softly, "I thought of my father's cough, of the debt, of the black car. I think everyone wonders that." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at me, and there was something in his eyes I had never seen before, something raw. For just a second, I thought he was going to tell me something real, something true, something that mattered. "Mia," he said. My name, in his voice, sounded strange and gentle. "There are things about me, about my family, about why I am the way I am, that you don't know. Things I can't tell you." He stopped himself. The wall came back up, all at once, like a door slamming. "It doesn't matter. Forget I said anything. It's late. You should sleep." And he stood, and he left the room, and I sat alone by the dying fire, wondering what he had almost said, and why he had stopped himself, and what secret was so heavy that it could put that much sadness in a man's eyes. I did not know it then, but I had been sitting very close to the truth, and he had almost handed it to me, and I began, against every promise I had made to myself, to care about him. Not love, not yet, but something, a softness, a curiosity, a wish to see him smile, just once, a real smile. It was foolish. I knew it was foolish. This was a business contract. 1 year, and then divorce. He had told me plainly that love was a weakness he would never allow himself. I was a poor girl who had been bought to save a company, nothing more. I told myself this, firmly, every night. But the heart does not always listen to sense. Then came the night that changed everything. The night I learned that nothing was what I believed it to be. It was late, very late. I could not sleep, so I went down toward the library, as I had 100 times before. But as I approached, I heard Adrian's voice. He was on the phone, and his voice was low and tense, not the calm voice he always used. Something in it made me stop, just outside the door, in the dark hallway. I know I should not have listened, but I did. "It's done," Adrian was saying. "She's here. She's my wife. Everything is going exactly as planned." A pause. "No, she has no idea, and she must never find out. Not about the real reason, not about her father, not about any of it." I went completely still. My blood turned to ice. Her father, my father. "She thinks it's about the will," Adrian went on, his voice hard. "She thinks I chose her because she was desperate and reliable. She believes every word of it. Good. Let her keep believing it. If she ever learns why I really married her, if she ever learns what her family did, what I've been planning all these years, it will destroy everything, so it stays buried. Do you understand me?" It stays buried. I stood in that dark hallway, my hand pressed over my mouth, and I felt the whole world tilt beneath my feet. I had married a stranger to save my family. That was the story I had told myself. A simple, honest trade. My year for their safety. But it was a lie. All of it. Adrian Sinclair had not chosen me because I was desperate. He had chosen me on purpose, for a hidden reason. A reason connected to my own father, to something my family had done, to a secret buried somewhere in the past that I knew nothing about. He had been planning this for years, he said. Years. Long before my father got sick, long before the debt, long before that black car came to my shop, which meant none of it was an accident, which meant the man I was slowly, foolishly beginning to care about had married me as part of a plan I did not understand, for reasons that involved my family, and that he was determined I would never discover. There was more. I pressed myself against the wall, and I made myself keep listening, even though every word was a knife. The locked room stays locked, Adrian said. If she ever gets in there, she'll understand everything. The photographs, the letters, all of it. And I'm not ready for that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. A pause. I know what I'm doing. I've waited years for this. I'm not going to ruin it now because I'm starting to. He stopped. His voice changed, went quieter, almost pained. It doesn't matter what I feel. This was never about feelings. She's part of the plan. That's all she can ever be. That's all I can let her be. She's part of the plan. That's all she can ever be. I backed away from the door, silently, my heart hammering. I went back up the stairs. I closed the door of my beautiful, lonely room, and I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, shaking as everything I thought I knew fell apart around me. The locked room, the photographs, the letters, whatever was behind that heavy new lock in the east wing, it was the key to all of it. The truth about why Adrian Sinclair had really married me was sitting behind that door, 60 steps from where I slept, and I was going to get in there, whatever it took. Who was Adrian Sinclair, really? What had my father done? What was the real reason I was standing in this house, wearing this stranger's ring? And what would happen to my family and to me when I finally learned the truth? I did not know. Not yet, but I made myself a promise, sitting there in the dark, in the house of the stranger I had married. I was going to find out every secret, every lie, the real reason he had married me, and what my family had to do with it, and what he had been planning for all these years. I had married Adrian Sinclair to save my family, but now I understood that I had walked into the middle of a story that had begun long before I was born, a story with secrets I could not yet see, and whatever the truth was, however dangerous, I was going to uncover it. This was only the beginning.